Welcome back to Unleash the Goats, where we unleash ourselves upon the Star Wars franchise with reckless abandon, and nobody quite knows what we'll say next, least of all us.
Honestly, never thought we would.
Angela. Did you just play a TikTok?
Not on purpose. This is the last thing that I had open.
Caught on camera. I'm Nat, she, her. Angela, say hi. Apologize for your sins.
Hi, I'm Angela / Faye. She, her. I'm so sorry that I have corrupted our beautiful podcast with the TikTok sound. In fairness, it was a very funny one.
I support you. Sugar, say hi.
Hi, I'm Sugar, she, her.
Welcome to this episode. I don't know what we're talking about.
So this month we are doing another character deep dive. We did one of these for Obi-Wan. This month we're talking about Leia in honor of October being Carrie Fisher's birth month.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Carrie Fisher.
Happy birthday to Carrie Fisher, and for everyone who celebrates, happy Emmys. Congratulations to all the winners, and I'm giving a shout out to Shogun, because it beat Ahsoka in makeup and prosthetic makeup.
For some reason.
Oh no, for good reasons. Because Ahsoka sucked.
No. I'm just saying Shogun winning for some reason. There are other entries that I think should have won over Ahsoka. I think Ahsoka should have lost. However, Shogun should probably not have won.
You think Ahsoka should have lost, but you don't necessarily think that Shogun should have won.
Correct. Carrie Fisher, but specifically Carrie Fisher's portrayal of Leia. We're going to do a deep dive into how beautiful and wonderful Leia is and how much we love her. Because she's the best.
She's the best.
An icon. A role model. For all of us brunettes.
Okay. I want to get into that later. That's very specific.
Sorry, I didn't add brunette as one of our categories. I guess I missed that.
Number 1 theme of Leia, brunette. Number 2 theme, love versus duty.
Listen, in the 70s, brunettes were not considered to be, like, the thing. Blondes were in. Blondes were it. You had Meryl Streep. Not Meryl Streep. I'm so sorry. Marilyn Monroe.
Those are different people.
Yes. They're both blonde, though. Marilyn Monroe, who was, like, she was the it girl. Everybody wanted to be blonde. Carrie Fisher came along. She was the hero. She's the icon. And she had brown hair specifically, and she was cool. She was not like an American sweetheart cool like her mom was. No offense to Debbie Reynolds, fantastic lady. She was actually cool that like the kids could get with, and that was very important for brunette children who needed someone to look up to.
Yeah. Before we not to tangent us again,
would we like to skip to the feminism and femininity portion instead? I feel like that's more where we're at, which is fine. We can swap these.
Let's swap it. Let's move it around. Let's dance.
All right.
We're unhinged today. I love it. Feminist icon.
Yes.
Leia.
So, you mentioned that she felt more cool with, and that she was someone that young people could connect to. I think that was more about Carrie Fisher than it was about Leia. But Leia, I think, has that kind of personality as well, but possibly as part of Carrie Fisher playing her. That Carrie might have imbued Leia with some of this. We'll never probably quite know the exact line between what Lucas put in there and what Carrie put in there. But Leia is opinionated, and she doesn't seem to have any shame for her very strong opinions. She's pretty stubborn and bossy, which can be seen as a flaw, that she is very bossy, but like also totally within her rights to be bossy, given that everyone around her is an incompetent idiot.
Important note. Not only does she not feel shame for her opinions, she's never shamed for her opinions. No one ever treats her like she's wrong for having opinions in the narrative. I feel like that's a very important thing in stories, because sometimes characters like they just have opinions. People like judge them for them, or like, oh, you're the worst. Like, you're just shush, quiet. But like Leia, at no point does anyone ever like, you should be quieter, except for Han.
I was gonna say Han a little bit, but
yeah, Han a lot.
But he's not. But he's not, like, being shown to be correct. Like, in the narrative of the story, like, he's criticizing her, but he's wrong.
Yeah.
And, like, I like that a lot about Leia's character, is that she is never treated like she is wrong for being all of these smart, capable, opinionated person.
Yeah, she definitely, I think, is represented as smarter than Han. And so, like, yes, she's opinionated, and Han doesn't care for it. But that, like, Han is an idiot and Leia's not, you know? And, like, I think there is this element as the audience that you're supposed to recognize that, like, he doesn't like it, but that doesn't mean that Leia actually should be listening to Han.
I think it also is, it comes across as Han is also a very opinionated person, and the reason they're butting head is not because she's a woman, it's because he also has opinions and doesn't like anyone else having opinions.
Yes. That's true, because he also criticized Luke for having opinions.
Yeah,
so.
he just,
and Obi-Wan.
Han really feels like he's right all of the time. And that's where the conflict comes from.
Yeah, the conflict comes from Han believing he's right all the time and being wrong all the time, and Leia believing she's right all the time and being right all the time.
Yeah.
It's a really hard burden to bear, being right all the time.
Yeah.
The three of us would know.
Also true.
Facts.
But yeah, so I think one of the other things for her personality is that she is very stubborn, she's bossy, she's opinionated, but she also has this element of her that is very kind and very accepting of others. She doesn't even seem to, she doesn't judge anybody for being inferior based on things they can't control. Like, she judges Han, but, like, that's fair. You know, she's judging Han based on his skill set that she is looking at, and it is lacking. Whereas, like, she clearly does not seem to judge the Ewoks for being inferior, and that this is what allows her to connect with them in a way that the others struggle with more. You know, Han in particular definitely doesn't respect the Ewoks.
A fun thing about her and Han is that, like, a lot of the times what she's criticizing for is not living up to his potential. She's like, you're actually better than this? How fucking dare you be worse? You can do better. And it's great. I really like that about their relationship, is she's constantly just, like, pushing him to be better, and he's like, how dare you think that I can grow and be a good person?
And except for the times where she's like, you know what, fuck you for this, though, actually.
Yeah.
He's like, you're an ugly asshole. And he's like, ugly? Like, yeah, I'm an asshole, but how dare you think I'm ugly?
How dare you call me ugly?
I woke up at 2 a.m. for this pomade.
Right?
How could you?
Like, at minimum, you have to admit that I'm an attractive asshole.
I like that she doesn't.
And she's like, no.
That's fun for me.
Yeah. But yeah, so she's got all of these, like, really interesting kind of connections in her character that she can be bossy. You know, she is very critical of people. She can be very critical of people when they aren't living up to the standards that she has set for herself and the people around her, but that she can be very kind and accepting of people that maybe others around her would be more critical of. And I think that that's a nice kind of collection of traits for Leia to have within the original trilogy. And that part about her being bossy and stubborn, if we go into Disney stuff, we do see her within the Kenobi show as being, like, a little judgy, right? That, like, she has the interaction with her cousin where she calls him out for, God, what was it? It was, like, for wanting to be like his father or something and not having opinions of his own.
And for being droidist.
For viewing this other being as inferior to himself and treating him badly. And she does judge that, but that, like, she hasn't quite gotten to the point of, like, you know, recognizing, like you said with Han, where she goes, like, you have more potential than this, how dare you not live up to that. There's none of that with the cousin. With the cousin, I think it's just like, you're a bitch and I hate you. And I don't respect you at all. And she doesn't have that, hasn't quite gotten to the maturity of, you can be better than this. And I expect you to be better than this. You know, you even see that a little bit with Obi Juan, where she just kind of is throwing out all these, like, you're just kind of old and scruffy, you know, kind of stuff. And that she can be judgy, but that this is a flaw of hers that she is able to take and kind of mature as she grows into something more, I am being critical to help you, rather than just, I am just going to judge you.
Yeah, it turns into something that is very much coming from a place of, like, empathy, rather than just as a little kid, like, being very strong. Like, Leia is always very sure about where she stands on things, and when other people are not with her, she's like, interesting. Have you reconsidered? And as an adult, she's like, that kind of goes away a little bit, which I think is normal for her. Like, the characterization of her as a kid felt very true to her as an adult. That, like, it does not feel like her empathy to other people is something that is just thrown in there because she's a woman. Like, it feels, the way that her character is built kind of meshes together in a really nice way. And I think seeing her as a kid just added to that and was like, here's this trajectory of this person and how we get there. I think they did a really good job. I just really like the Kenobi show, so I will just praise it any chance I could get.
Agreed. I think we all would. One of the things I think also is really interesting about Leia is that romance is not a priority for her. That also probably was something fairly revolutionary in the 70s amongst female main characters, especially within genre stuff. Is that, like, while we do see the two main characters, like, immediately into her, you know, one of the first things ever said about her by Luke is that she's beautiful. But that Leia herself isn't necessarily seeking romance. Her priority, especially within the first one, is, you know, getting the plans out, you know, surviving to some degree, escaping the Death Star when that becomes an option, and then, you know, getting back to Yavin and defending the rebels. You know, like, all of her priorities within the first film are very based around being a warrior in many senses, even though she doesn't wield a weapon all that often. And then even in the second one, when the romance comes in, part of the conflict between her and Han is that, like, his priority is the romance and hers isn't.
That she's admitting to. Anyways, but like, her personal state of priorities, for sure.
I mean, I think even if she admitted she cared for him, I don't think the romance is her priority.
I mean, she does clearly really want him to stick around, which is more what I would classify it. She says it's for the good of the rebellion, but she does want him around. So I would say that it's more of I don't think it's like a goal for her or like a super priority, but I think that she does prioritize wanting him in her life in the second one specifically. But she definitely, like, puts that aside to accomplish other goals. Like, if he wants to leave, she's not going to stop him.
Yeah.
Like, she wants the rebellion to succeed more than she wants him to stick around, but she does still want him around. I like that dynamic of them a lot. I like the back and forth of my priority is, like, this bigger thing, and he's over here like, well, my priority is you, so what are we going to do about that? Like, I think that's fun. But I do think that she does have a little bit of a romance priority in the second one, which I think is part of what makes the romance work for me, is that she actually cares about him, you know, prioritizes important people in her life or something.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Nat.
Well, I was just going to say, like, it's not her, like, it's on her list of priorities enough to, like, make it believable so that the romance for her does not come out of nowhere, but it's not number one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I think she'd let go, and like you said, like, she's willing to let Han go if he wants to go, you know, she'll talk to him about it, and she'll let him know that she'd rather he stays, but she's not gonna chase him, she's not gonna abandon her responsibilities for him, by any means. And I think that's kind of more where I was coming from with, like, it's never a priority for her, where she's abandoning everything else in order to achieve the romance. Like, at no point is that ever going to happen for her.
Unlike some people. Anakin.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. But that I think that was probably something fairly radical for her character, you know, for female characters in this time period, that would have maybe felt very new, that she wasn't necessarily out there, like, with her only stated goal being romance, or that the romance overtook, you know, her goal as a rebel.
Just, like, swooning over the men. Just like,
right,
how can I help you? Anything for you? Yeah. None of that. She's over here to serve the rebellion. If anything, she has her priorities in line more than anybody else does. Because Luke is off there, like, dealing with the magic shit. Han is just, like, here to cause problems sometimes and occasionally help her out. Leia's over here like, I am the only one doing anything to get this rebellion off the ground. Oh my god.
I know. Well, and she keeps getting stuck with Han's shenanigans. He, like, dragged her onto the Falcon, and she's like, what is happening? It's like, they get to Bespin, and even on Bespin, even though they seem very much more affectionate with each other and like almost like they could be considered in a relationship by that point, she's like, he'll walk in and be like, "Hi, beautiful," and she's like, "I don't trust your fucking friend, man,"
And she's right.
And she's right.
She's so right for that.
But like her mind is kind of always on that, and like she'll allow the affection, but she's like, "Man, focus." Like,
yeah.
One thing I love about Leia is her costumes are so good. They are always so practical and so fitting for her character. Like, I think about her Bespin costume all of the time. Like, the beautiful jumpsuit with the cloak is so iconic. It's incredible. And we should talk about it more because it suits her so well. Like, it's so comfortable and stylish and lovely and absolutely something she would wear. And yet she could still, like, run someone down and shoot them in the back with it if she needed to. Like, it's great. All of her costumes they're chef's kiss.
Have you guys seen that the Bespin costume was actually Lando's costume first?
I have not. Holy shit.
Yeah, like, there's concept art out there of, like, the shooting Vader scene. And you can see him and like Lando in the background of the concept art, and he's very clearly wearing that outfit that ultimately ended up getting given to Leia, and everyone's like, "What?"
Honestly, we love to see it.
It's very funny, but like there might be a reason that it feels more practical, is that it was actually originally given to a male character, and so she's in like pants with just this kind of little overcoat thing, and like you're right, like it is very practical. It looks very nice. It's very beautiful. But it is very funny that costume in particular actually was not necessarily originally conceived of as Leia's, but was conceived of as for Lando.
If we find it, we'll put a link to it in the episode description.
Yeah, I'll look for it. Because I saw it on a Tumblr post, so I'm sure I can wander around and find it somewhere.
You should be able to just put in the search bar in Tumblr. That should get it.
Yeah,
right?
Should we?
You're so funny.
That's so funny.
Sorry, I said it just to see how mad you would get, and I was so thrilled that it worked.
But yeah, her costumes are really nice. I like that, like, when they go to fight on Endor, that she's in regular, like, camo stuff.
Yeah, she's in the same shit Han's in. Like,
yeah.
They're exactly the same outfit.
I don't think she ever wears heels, to my knowledge. She might have chunky boots, but I don't think she ever wears heels.
She doesn't need to, because her co-stars are short.
How's she? But
I know, that's my point. She doesn't need to wear them to look taller because everyone around her is like just as short as he is, so it's fine.
Fair enough. I will say the one thing about her costumes that was not super practical was the very infamous no bra in the first one.
But in fairness, that is an outfit that she is wearing as an official senator, so it's not supposed to be a practical dress. So like all of her other clothes are clothes that she's wearing in practical settings. That is a dress that she's wearing as in her official role as a senator. So it is supposed to be like an impractical fancy dress because she's supposed to be, it's a princess dress.
She's in transit at the time, so you could argue that it was maybe a little bit more of a travel dress. But regardless, wearing a bra is not necessarily impractical.
That's true. The fact that she's not wearing a bra is weird, and George Lucas is an odd person who doesn't know how bras work, which is odd because you think he would, considering he was married, but I guess not.
Didn't he get divorced? Maybe that's why.
He knows how bras. He was married at the time that this happened, but
yeah.
But you'd think so. It's not like I would not necessarily expect George Lucas to understand how bras work in space, because that was the argument he was making. However, you could definitely speak to said wife, and I'm sure said wife would have had a few things to say.
Yeah, like the fact that she is not wearing a bra is not weird to me. It's why, on a meta level, as an actress, not as a character, she is not wearing a bra.
Well, yeah, because like I guess it is supposed to be as character, because he's like, oh, like you'd get suffocated by a bra in space if you were wearing one, but
that's weird of George Lucas. Like, it's weird to me because he was weird about it. If there wasn't a discussion about it, and it was just like, oh, she's not in a bra in this one, I genuinely, like, don't notice when I'm watching.
Yeah, if they were just like, yeah, this dress looks better with that one, like, she's just gonna go with that one, that'd be super normal. That'd be super fine. The fact that he was like, no, there's no bras in space, you can't wear one, like, that's weird. Yeah. Why would you say that?
We're also coming at this from, like, decades later, and for us as youngsters, young hip people, never described myself that way before, and I never will again. Like, it's very normal for us now in 2024 to say not wearing a bra is fine, and I don't know that I have no idea. I'm assuming that was not the case at the time. So maybe her not wearing a bra was like an attempt to step in a good direction.
The 70s was hippies.
I was going to say 60s and 70s would have been bras. Wasn't that the burn the bra movement?
Was it?
Yeah. That was like the 70s. Maybe in like the 60s or the 50s.
Yeah. I always forget. We like go in circles. And it's like, here's the feminist movement. It's a reaction to the past decade and not anything before that.
Maybe he heard some astronauts making a joke about it and he took them seriously.
Maybe. But that is the only part of her costume that I would say is like less practical. Aside from the weirdness of the Ewoks having this perfectly fitted, beautiful gown for her.
Interesting.
That dress is so much skimpier than I think it is in the movie. Like, in the movie, it looks really practical and normal. And then I see, like, behind-the-scenes pictures of it, and it looks like a Pocahontas dress. And I'm like, I don't understand how this didn't come across in the movie, because somehow in the movie, it looks like a really conservative dress. And then you see the behind-the-scenes, and it's like, the thigh slit is, like,
it's way up there.
You never see that in the movie.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's always surprises me every time I see a picture of the dress, like, in any other setting. And I'm like, okay. I mean, it's beautiful. But
it's pretty, yeah.
Always surprises me.
Oh my gosh. Sorry, I have to look up pictures.
But also, like, where did this dress come from, Ewoks? Like,
They
she's
made
wearing
it
a
for
dead
her.
woman's dress.
They made it for her. They made it special.
Within, what,
They
2
looked it up.
hours?
Yes.
Yes.
They're very talented.
At making dresses for humans that they probably haven't seen all that often?
Yes.
Sure.
They're skilled tailors.
Sure. All right.
Mm-hmm. That or they ate somebody. I don't know.
Okay. Interesting.
That was my argument just now. She's wearing a dead woman's clothing.
Because they ate her? Your argument is that they ate a woman and then gave her this dress? I have not watched this movie in recent years. Are the Ewoks eating humans?
They are planning on eating them.
Yeah.
Oh.
Before C-3PO does the thing.
Yeah, Han
That's
and Luke,
true.
at least.
Okay,
They're
you're
never
right.
planning on eating Leia. But they are planning on eating
Well,
Luke
they
and
had
Han.
this dress that would fit her perfectly,
Well,
so why would they
the
eat
thing
her?
about the dress is that even if they had caught someone and ate them, where did that person come from? And why did they have a dress that's like so foresty wood style? Like, it could only have been made for Leia. Otherwise, like, did they have a prisoner for a while that they made the dress for? Or that they then ate, that they kept her in the pantry? Or, like,
Yeah, so...
they made her a beautiful embroidered dress for their prisoner? Like
Yeah.
a doll? Like...
Yeah.
Is there, like, a conclave of humans on the planet that they, like, hunted down and stole all their stuff and ate them? Like...
I am curious what you both think of her slave outfit, because we haven't brought it up yet.
We haven't talked about the slave outfit.
Listen,
And I think we need to.
13-year-old me, big fan.
Okay.
Big bisexual fan.
I was going to say,
Yeah,
the
the
lesbian in you
awakening.
thinks it's great.
29-year-old me is like, what did you do to that poor 21-year-old that you forced her into that stupid fucking outfit?
Yeah, the things that Carrie had to go through to fit into that were not great.
No, they were real bad. And it was really stupid. However, 13-year-old me still thinks it's beautiful.
In context, like, she's not wearing anything that's all that different from what the other slave women are wearing. Right, so it's not like she's in anything particularly more awful than, like, Ula, is wearing. It's just that Ula is in a lot of green stuff, and so you're seeing it a little bit less, maybe.
Yeah.
And Ula's a random extra, whereas Leia's a more main character. So, yes, on the one sense, like, was it kind of weird to put her in this costume? Was it necessary? No. It kind of fits in context that she would have been forced to wear something like this. But it also was very clearly done for fetishistic reasons, and we know that this is not the last costume that got made for a female character in Star Wars for fetishistic reasons, because George Lucas was a little bit of a creep. Shit happened.
Yeah.
It's true. And I feel like also, considering what they knew about their audience and what they knew about the audience's opinion of Leia and how much people loved her, the fact that they put her in a bikini for the third movie was, I don't know if it specifically qualifies as fan service, but, like, is there to be a draw to the men and boys who want to fuck Leia. Like, That's what it's there for.
Yeah.
And that's weird. And I don't enjoy it, even though she's beautiful.
And, like, this is the same movie that puts her in the camo, you know, and pants for Endor, and, you know, her disguise when she comes in is, like, completely covered from head to toe and in pants for when they go to Jabba's palace. So it's like, it's a movie where she goes back and forth between these really weird, impractical feminine outfits, both the slave outfit and the Ewok dress, and also these much more practical outfits where, like, if she's able to choose what she's wearing, she chooses something practical. She chooses pants, you know? But if she isn't allowed to choose what she's wearing, she ends up forced into femininity. And I just think that there's an interesting dichotomy there that could be, like, if we're being really generous, there could be something said there about, like, when a woman's allowed to choose for herself, you know, might choose to be more practical, whereas, like, forcing women to wear feminine things is, like, always negative.
There's also something to be said that, like, the costume department, I don't know if the costume department themselves, but, like, there's something, there could have been an interesting thing there of the only way to get a character like Leia into these costumes for the narrative would be to force her into them, because there's no way she would choose to put these sexy costumes on unless she had to.
I think the main reason that the slave outfit does not, like, the one thing that I will say, I don't forgive it. I don't know why I'm so upset by this outfit. I didn't realize I had strong feelings about it until this conversation right here in real time. Yeah. But apparently I have strong feelings about it. The only reason that I don't despise it is because it makes sense in the context of Jabba the Hutt is a fucking creep. And so, of course, he would put her in this outfit. And she's, like, very obviously uncomfortable and not doing it on herself to try to be sexy. So I'll give them that.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where I land, too.
I do really appreciate that she does put on pants most of the time. Just because, how are you not worried about everything falling out all of the time? I don't know.
I do love that she gets to kill the man who puts her in that outfit. That's great.
That's
beautiful.
Yes.
That does kind of make up for it a little bit, that they're like, okay, yeah, he did put her in this, and it's this for the boys, but also she gets to kill the guy who did it to her. You're
for
welcome, ladies.
For the bisexual girls. That's for us.
But yeah, so that kind of loops us into, like, the ways that Leia's a little bit dated sometimes from a modern perspective, obviously, that there are some of her costumes that are less practical, a little bit weird, clearly leaning into trying to make her seem like a beautiful, sexy woman for the male audience. There's also, like, even though Leia herself isn't invested in her romances, there is, like, a love triangle being built up, which is just very dated at this point. You know, there's nothing particularly original or interesting about both men, like, immediately being interested in a relationship with her, and Luke's first comment about her being she's beautiful. Yeah, so, you know, there's little aspects of Leia that I think can be a little dated. One of the things that bothers me continuously in the modern day, because this is a problem that actually still goes, is this idea that Leia's future is inevitably going to be marriage and children with Han. And I feel like we could move away from that, because that obviously is still happening. It's exactly the future she got in the sequels, too, even though they got divorced because her kid turned into an evil shitlord. That, like...
Everyone does.
Yes, one does. You know, like, that still is exactly where she went in her life, was that she gave up being a Jedi in order to focus on her family, in order to prioritize family. And that she gives up her life at the end, that the solution they came up with to Carrie Fisher dying was Leia as a character gives her life for her son. You know?
Yeah.
And so I think there is an element of Leia's character that still, I think, gets wrapped up in being a wife and being a mother that I wish we could move away from a little bit more.
Specifically, too, with her, she not only gave up her life physically, but when they do the flashback and, like, her Jedi and stuff, is she says that if she continues, the reason that she gives up being a Jedi Master is because if she continues, her son will die.
Yeah.
Listen, that's a good reason. She's a mother. She loves her kid. However, maybe fuck them kids a little bit. I mean, that's his own decisions.
Yeah.
You can't stop him. Like, if he's going to do that, he's going to do that. Like, you need to make decisions that's best for, like, you. Also, like, I'm saying, like, the way that they decided that the reason she would stop pursuing a career that she is passionate about in this, like, alternate universe thing is because it might kill her son later down the line is... I don't know. I don't really have the words to articulate why it bothers me. But, like, it's not exactly the same. But it bothers me in the same way that it bothers me when, like, talented, wonderful women who have, like, really good careers lined up give it up to go be a mom. Not because it's bad to go be a mom, because being a mom is good, but because I know many women who are so bored at home with their kids because their kids are not intellectually challenging and they are incredibly smart. And, like, it's not that the being a mother is bad, because it's not. It's incredibly important. It's so important. But, like, the men don't do it. Their husbands don't do it. Their husbands go off to do, like, big jobs and things.
Yeah, like, the husbands have both. I think it also kind of goes back to how we were talking about how her romantic relationship is not her number one priority. When we get to sequels, her family has become her number one priority, and that's, like, a little bit out of line with who she was in the original trilogy.
Yeah, like, Leia being a leader in the Senate or being a general is and should be more important to her than her family, because, like, it's more important to Luke than his family. It's more important to, like, a lot of other characters, and I feel like Leia having to have her family be more important to her is weird when it doesn't have to happen for anybody else.
Yeah.
And even just having kids, like, why does she need to have kids? Everyone makes her have kids because she happens to be the paired up couple at the end, but it's like, not every relationship leads to children, y'all. Like, it just fucking don't, you know? And so it's just like this, it's not even just the idea that, like, her priority becomes her family, but that she gets married and has kids at all, even if she has other priorities. She does not actually have to become a mother or get married in order to stay in character. She can have a relationship with Han without getting married, too. And I just feel like there is this continued idea that Leia and Han have to get married and have kids moving forward. And that this is just inevitable. There is no other way that their relationship ends or that her story would go from here. And I find that a little bit frustrating and sexist. And I'm like, can we just, like, I mean, like, at this point, Disney has set up that she had a kid, so you can't really go anywhere else. But, like, you know, even in Legends, right? Like, she gets married, she has kids, even though she's allowed to, you know, stay a Jedi at the same time. She still does get married and becomes a mom. You know, that this is just kind of an inevitable thing that she has to do. And I'm like, it didn't have to be, though. Like, at the end of the original trilogy, she did not have to be a mother. There's nothing that happens here that, like, implies that this is the only direction for her character to go.
What do you mean women are made to have babies? It's the only purpose.
It's our only purpose.
No.
Speaking of her relationships,
we've touched on it already, but I really want to get into her relationship with Han, because I have discovered that I might be the outlier here.
You are. Tell us all your opinions, though.
I really hate that she's in a relationship with Han. Like, end of story. Like, I haven't, to be fair, in my adult life, rewatching the original trilogy, I'm, like, halfway through the second. Like, I haven't gotten all the way to the end, and so I'm leaving some space there. But I'm very upset with the yes, or the no means yes vibes. I feel like that is really, really strong. And in the sequels, which we should throw in the trash, I just simply do not, like, I did not buy that they had any chemistry at all between those two actors. And that is very hard for me to let go of, going back and watching the original trilogy. Like, I just don't buy that they're into each other. Part of that is the no means yes energy. I just don't buy it. I just don't buy it. I just, like, no. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I understand that the canon reason for them divorcing or whatever, or I don't know if it's an official divorce or if they're just like separated or whatever. I understand that in canon, it's like, oh, because our son is making these choices that are hurting us, and so our family has fallen apart. But as from where I'm standing, I'm like, I can't believe that you got married and it lasted for any amount of time, enough that you had a child together, because I cannot get on board with the two of them. So that's my hot take.
What I'm hearing is that you really, really, really hate it when couples have conflict.
When
they clash.
No, not necessarily. I think the problem with me because conflict is like an inevitable thing.
It also doesn't have to be about the relationship either, whereas their conflict in Empire Strikes Back is constantly about the status of their relationship.
Yeah, I think the difference for me is that I can do enemies to lovers. I can get on board with that. But you have to establish a common ground for me to get on board, and I just don't see it with Han and Leia. Like, Han seems to be invested in her because she's beautiful and smart, and of course he is, but like, I don't understand how she develops feelings for Han when he's an asshole. And here's the thing about me is that I'm very queer. So I'm like, what do you mean you're into this straight man that's just like aggressively a straight man? And that might be, I'm coming at it with a lot of bias, is my point.
You don't see the appeal in Han.
I don't see the appeal in, I see some of it, but I do not like how he treats her. And
I'm not sure that deleted scene you just sent is going to change her mind. I feel like this is going to make it worse.
I like that scene. Okay, so I sent the deleted scene in the group chat because, and I'll link it in the episode description, but there's a deleted version of the kiss scene that's like the yes means no scene, right? In
No means yes.
Back, where he kisses her. Yeah, no means yes, yeah. Where he kisses her. In the alternate version, which they shot but then didn't put in the movie because they're stupid, she goes for it. She's into it. She's like, comes back from the kiss, she's like, all right, flyboy, and then starts kissing him back, and then 3PO interrupts them. And that is a scene that I feel like really, when I watched it, I was like, oh, that's what I like about their relationship, is that she likes to be pushed and she likes to push him back. And like, that's why their relationship works to me, is because like they both really enjoy to push buttons in somebody who's not going to leave.
Okay.
That's why I like their relationship, but I can 100% see why that doesn't work for other people, because like, that's, everybody has their things. I personally don't really like most enemies to lovers. I think they're stupid.
I'm not into enemies to lovers either.
They have to. I'm very particular about it. I think probably what it comes down to is that it does not, because I just like cannot pick up on any chemistry between their actors. It doesn't come across. It comes across as more aggressive than playful to me,
which could be a level of reflection of their behind the scenes shenanigans.
Yeah,
given what we know about those two actors.
Like, I won't die on this hill, but it's just like, it does not work for me.
I think I land in the middle. I think I have 100% picked up No Means Yes vibe. Like you have. I am just, it bothers me a little less. I think I've read enough meta about Han and Leia kind of defending them, and defending kind of the way Faye did, where it's like, it's not so much no means yes as much as it is like, this is Leia's arc, right? That Leia does like him, and that they are trying to set that up at the beginning, that Leia is into him and is not admitting it. So your willingness to buy into it entirely depends on whether you buy that Leia is into it and not admitting it at the beginning, which is this exact same scenario you get in Attack of the Clones, right? That like your willingness to like Anakin and Padme and believe in that storyline 100% depends on whether you buy that Anakin is right at the beginning, that she's into it and just isn't admitting to it. Because every other interaction after that relies on that interpretation of their relationship. Otherwise, he just comes off as a stalker and a creep and like a sexual predator, basically.
where Empire Strikes Back succeeds for this in a way that Attack of the Clones doesn't is that Leia follows Han out after he says that he's leaving and starts yelling at him and like interacting with him and pushing his buttons after he like says he's going to leave. She's like, actually, I'm not done bothering you. I'm not done having you be in my life. So she starts like following him around and like getting in his face like a lot because she wants his attention. She wants him to be paying attention to her, and she likes to interact with him. She doesn't have to chase him. She could have just let him leave. He said he was leaving. And that was what really really sinks it for me that she likes him, is because she doesn't have to be giving him this attention. And she is.
Yeah, I think even if you read it more kindly, there is an element of no means yes coming across, because the whole point is Leia likes him and won't admit to it. So the message being sent is a little bit no means yes, even if you view it as positive, that like this is part of Leia's character arc, and that does fit into an unfortunate pattern for female characters in media, and that can be difficult to get over as a female viewer, even if this is like one of the better written versions of it. I think you can kind of have it, and that's why I kind of land in the middle, as I'm like, I do think it's a better written version of it. They're not my favorite couple in the world. I don't dislike them, but I'm not like gaga about them either. I think the most I have liked Han and Leia was actually in the Thrawn trilogy that you gave to me, where like all the conflict is gone. You know, they're together, they're fine. She's preggo, and he is just like, you know, being a very supportive husband at this point. You know, and I found that actually more engaging, and one of the times I've liked them the best is when all of that is done, all of the weird bullshit's done, and we get to sit in the much more comfortable Return of the Jedi area, where they're already confident in their feelings for each other and the dynamic that they have with each other, and they can just move forward, and the conflict is primarily external. So I don't love them. I think I didn't like them as much at the beginning. When I was a kid, when I was first watching these, I didn't buy into the romance as much here either. But I don't hate it. I don't think it's as offensive to me as the Attack of the Clones version. Even though the Attack of the Clones version is intentionally toxic, I think I was intended to like them and root for them in a way that never happened.
Yeah.
Whereas this ended up more like, like I could take them or leave them. I'm not like actively against it. But I can understand why it would come off as sexist and frustrating to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole no means yes thing is really annoying, especially because it's always for women. It's always for women. Like, they never flip it around. Like, it would be one thing if it was a trope that was, like, mostly for women, but, like, you know, it's around. But no, it's always women. Like, I can't think of a single example where it's men and not treated like assault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You Googling, Natalie?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, Nat's like about to challenge you.
No, I'm not.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying I've never seen it.
No, I also cannot think of any example where the no is coming from the male character, and so I'm looking to see if the internet has any examples. But I also let's at some point when I finish the original trilogy, let's revisit this conversation, because probably my mind will be changed when they start to get along.
Okay, in 2 years.
Yeah, so in 2 years when I finish that. And then 2 years after that, we can talk about the Clone Wars after you finish that.
I'm getting closer.
I was gonna say, you're so fucking close, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the ways I've liked Han and Leia better is to look at it as this kind of continuation of Leia's theme of love versus duty, where Leia's kind of caught up in her duty to the rebellion, which is causing her to not acknowledge the feelings that she has for Han. And that this does like work into the character priorities we know about her from the first film, where her priority pretty much was the rebellion, you know, that she took charge very quickly, and that this is what's always on her mind. And so it makes sense that when it came to a romantic thing, that she would maybe churn this around and be like, maybe incapable of sort of allowing herself to prioritize that. That there isn't a balance to the things that she is choosing to prioritize. And that Han has picked up on this, and so he's trying to push her to be more honest about it, and Leia is holding back. And So by the end of Empire Strikes Back, she is able to acknowledge her feelings to Han, even though by the time she does so, it's too late to actually act on it because, he's being put into carbonite. But that when she gets stuck alone with him, she can't go to the rebellion. There's no way to focus on the rebellion anyway. All she has is all this alone time with Han, as they fight.
And Chewie.
And, well, yeah, and 3PO. But alone time without the rebellion, just with, a couple of random people. Kind of wandering in and out. But that and obviously then they get to Bespin, and there's Lando and everyone at Bespin, but that for a long time she's kind of stuck with Han, and she can't focus on the rebellion because she's just completely separated from it. And so it allows her to, not maybe allows it almost forces her a little bit into a position where, there's nothing else to focus on. She has to focus on this relationship in order to kind of keep going and survive, right? That it's all she's got left in the moment. So by the end, she's kind of done that work. I think that allowed me to soften a little bit towards Han and Leia. But and then obviously in the sequels, the marriage has broken up, but they still seem to be on relatively good terms with each other.
Yeah, it reminded me of those, I don't know, the stories or whatever of parents who lose a child and then they can't stay together because seeing each other reminds them of their lost child, and that's too painful, which is 100% understandable. Although in this situation, their child's not dead, he's just a dick. So, imagine that your son becomes a Nazi so hard that your marriage dies.
I think there's an element of blaming yourself, because it's not just that your son becomes a Nazi, it's that you are literally an activist for human rights and your son became a Nazi. Yeah. You're sitting there going, how the fuck did I go wrong here? What happened? I am someone who fights a lot for this. Where did this go wrong? And so I think that that's probably what tears Han and Leia apart more, is that both of them kind of are living with this uncertainty about where they went wrong. And all they can do is blame themselves and each other to some degree. Leia even says in Force Awakens that she blames them making the decision to send Ben away as the reason he went dark. That if they kept him, if they'd kept the nuclear family together, they would have been fine. That it was sending him away that caused the problem. And so it was the breaking of the nuclear family that was the issue. And, I have my issues with that, but that's a different conversation. But I do think that Leia kind of being willing to prioritize both her work and her family can be lumped into this love versus duty kind of theme she has. But like I said before, I also think that Leia doesn't have to have marriage and kids in order to be a woman character. And that she can have the relationship, without needing to go in that direction either. And that there were other directions you could take Leia's character, and no one seems willing to acknowledge it. And that's a little frustrating. Do we feel done talking about Han, and would we like to talk about Luke?
I would love to talk about Luke.
Shocking. I am shocked.
I know. What a surprise.
What a surprise. Faye, what are your thoughts about Leia's relationship with Luke?
Oh my, it's so fun. It's so cute. It's so adorable. I read this adorable meta once of Luke dreaming about a planet full of water and mountains, and Leia dreaming about a planet full of sand and a little boy who played with her. And I love them so much because they just feel so connected the instant that they meet. And they don't really recognize that connection for it being siblings, which is why they kiss. However, I would like to point out that they just immediately trust each other so much, so immediately.
Is it? I don't remember the scene super well, but I get the vibe that she kisses Luke to make Han jealous. Is that?
She does.
Okay,
she does.
Great.
Yes.
I'm understanding that correctly. Okay.
She does do that. And in fairness, Luke plays into it because he knows
Luke
what she's doing.
Luke is very impressed with this.
Yes, he intentionally plays it up to make Han even madder, which is very funny. And if at the time they think they are just friends, it is exactly what you do to your friends when they're trying to make their boyfriend mad, and they just like kiss you to make them mad, and you're like, yeah, that was great. Like, and it makes them so, like, that's exactly how, like, that dynamic would work, and it's only weird because they're siblings.
Yeah.
But they don't know that. So it makes perfect sense for their relationship because they're just, like, instantly besties. Like, I really, really like how connected they are so quickly. And part of that is because they're being written in the first movie as, like, the main character and the princess, like, the hero and the princess. So, like, that's part of why. But, like, in universe, I love that she trusts him so much that she holds on to him as they jump across a giant chasm. I love that they work together to run away from the stormtroopers and actually succeed. I love that in the third movie, the only person that Luke has ever brought up his mother to, not his uncle, not his aunt, not Aunt Ben, no one, he only brings up to Leia. She's the only person he trusts to talk about how he has always felt this loss of never knowing his mom. And their relationship is so good and so beautiful. And I love that Leia meets this boy and is just like, we are ride or die forever, instantly. And she has just lost everyone in her life. And I love that she finds Luke and is able to connect with him so well. I love them so much. They're little binary sons that circle each other in my brain all the time, who love each other and are connected in all of the ways. And I am forever pissed off that they don't even get to see each other in the sequels because Luke's not really there in that scene. And it makes me so mad because they deserved a last hug. They deserved it. Those are my thoughts.
I think one of the things I like about them too is that, especially within the context of Return of the Jedi, that like Leia's further ahead in her character journey than Luke is. And so like she knows that Luke is walking off to sacrifice himself, and she lets him go anyway. Because she understands putting duty over love sometimes, that she has to allow Luke to go his own direction, even if she doesn't like it.
Or agree.
I don't think she disagrees with his choice. It's just like, it's going to be painful to lose him, you know? But I don't think she disagrees with the logic behind it necessarily of like, it has to be me. You know, I think because there is a cosmic connection between them, and Leia obviously also is powerfully force sensitive, so I get the feeling she'd also be connected to like, you know, the waves of fate kind of thing, that would hit her as like, he's right. He does have to go do this. I might not love that that's what he has to do, but I'm not going to stop him, and he's right. But then you get the counter with Luke in the end, where like when her life is threatened, that's what pushes him into nearly killing his own father.
Yes.
And he pulls himself back, but that his love for Leia like almost pushes him into darkness, whereas Leia's love for him, like, you know, is already very settled. And that I think it's more just that Leia's further ahead than he is. It's not her story, obviously. But that Leia has kind of found a lot of her own balance by Return of the Jedi. Really within that conflict with Han, where she's kind of gotten over that hump a little bit. That she's figured out how to prioritize her duty with her love. That she doesn't have to give up one for the other necessarily, but that different situations, you know, will call for one thing over the other. Whereas Luke is still working through his, and so he doesn't, you know, he isn't quite at the same place that Leia is at the end of Return of the Jedi. But I appreciate getting to see that contrast in how they view each other and what their love for each other does to them within Return of the Jedi. I think that's really interesting.
I am always obsessed with how Leia loses her entire planet, everyone she knows, and Luke loses his whole family. He loses Ben, he loses Beru, he loses Owen. He doesn't know he's gonna lose Wedge, but he does later also lose Wedge, and not Wedge.
No, Biggs, yes.
Biggs. And she goes to comfort him because that is the kind of person she is. She is so kind, and she immediately reaches out to try to make a connection with somebody else who is feeling loss. And that is how she deals with her grief, is by being kind. I love that aspect of Leia's character so much, that when she is hurting and when she is pain, she reaches out to other people. And I think that's a big reason why she would never go dark, despite like a lot of like fan like meta lore about her is like, oh, she's most likely to go dark between the two of them. But actually the way that we see Leia deal with pain means that she is so unlikely to ever do that because she always reaches out to other people and people she loves and uses her support system to feel better. That's how she processes things. That is not something that's ever going to push her into the dark the way that, like, sometimes Luke withdraws when he's feeling pain and, like, pulls back on himself. And that is much more likely to go dark than Leia ever is.
Yeah, well, obviously the whole point is that, like, Luke very much has the possibility of going dark. His arc doesn't make sense if you don't accept that. Whereas Leia is fully ahead of him.
Really annoys me when people ignore that in Luke's, like, meta. It's like, oh, he's a sunshine boy. He would never go evil. I'm like, no, he's
100% he would.
Super almost did. Like, big important thing is that George Lucas almost ended the entire fucking series with him putting on the fucking helmet and going evil. Like, Luke could have been evil. He could have been Darth Vader. That's the point. Like, yeah. Leia's never going to because she's not like that. That's not how she deals with things. But Luke all super could, but not Leia because she doesn't process things like that. She had a healthy, like, she has a really, really healthy support system and a really, really healthy, like, way to process her emotions. And I love her for it.
Yeah.
She went to therapy.
Yeah, this girl had parents who knew what the fuck they were doing.
Yes, she did.
Not that Owen and Beru were bad parents.
No, but they were in a rural area. They have way less resources than the King and Queen of Alderaan did.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that they can't teach Luke how to manage his emotions, but they do seem to have been taking a slower approach to allowing Luke to kind of come to those conclusions on his own, because like you said, they are in a rural area, and so Luke presumably should have had the time to just kind of, like, get there on his own. He wasn't being asked to take a shit ton of responsibility yet, whereas Leia was a senator by 16. This girl needed to, like, have her shit together at a much earlier age than Luke was being expected to. So she's already gone through that, which is something that we do see in the Kenobi show as well. And there's even a little bit within her cameo appearance in Rebels where she's kind of being sent on, like, one of her first Rebel missions, and she isn't as confident in her own skills yet, and she has to kind of manage that in a way that we see her do much better at by the time she gets to A New Hope. And so that's what I'm saying, like, Leia probably had similar conflicts. It's just that Leia's already dealt with her conflict probably years before we even meet her. So by the time you get to something like Return of the Jedi, Leia's just much further along in her character journey than Luke is. And so she's capable of handling the knowledge that Luke is about to sacrifice himself easier than Luke can handle thinking that Leia's going to die.
No, not die. Leia, go dark. The idea of Leia being lost is horrifying to him because it's so antithetical to who she is.
Right, yeah, the idea that, like, they would take Leia and torture and turn her to darkness is what turns him, almost turns him. And it's not even love for Leia that pulls him back, right? It's love for Anakin, technically, that pulls him back.
Partly because he's like, yeah, Leia wouldn't really mind if I killed Vader. She'd be cool with it.
To be fair, yeah. To be fair, she'd be like,
she'd forgive me.
Yeah.
For
the right reasons, obviously. She would not want him to kill Vader and then become Vader.
No, yeah.
Solves zero problems. But, like...
It's one of those things where, like, you know, like when Anakin's burning the world down for Padme, like, he knows full well she would not want him to do that. He knows that. But, like, when Luke is going after Vader for Leia's sake, he's like, she wouldn't mind. She'd be cool with this.
Yeah, it's not until he goes like, oh, if I kill him, I'll become him.
Yes.
And Leia would not be chill with that, though.
Like, no, Leia would not forgive me for that. No, never mind.
Yeah, like, actually, hang on a second. Sorry, girl. Let me turn things around real fast.
Just give me a minute. I promise I can deal.
Leia has a son. He stinks. Moving on. It's so stupid that she gave her life to force whammy him into light.
It's never fucking explained how the fuck that's supposed to work, but whatever.
Yeah, Leia deserved better. Let's talk about her parents.
Let's talk about parents who actually get to raise a good child.
Does Kylo die?
What?
Does Kylo die?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
He uses his life force to bring Rey back to life after Rey dies.
Oh. Interesting.
Yeah. Super dead. And maybe he made her force pregnant if you listen to the Reylos.
Nobody listens to Reylos. God, stop.
No. Okay, sorry, let's move on. I just saw, like, her son dies anyway, and I was like, oh. So many people die in the sequels.
I know a lot of people die in the sequels.
Did you know Luke dies? I just found out.
Tragically.
All right, we are moving on to the parents. So we're talking. She obviously has 4 parents, 2 biological, 2 adopted. And there's a lot of discussion about the different impact that those parents have had on Leia. A lot of nature versus nurture discussions. Between them. I am generally more in the nurture category here for Leia. I don't really feel like Anakin and Padme had a ton of impact on who Leia becomes as a person, aside from just, genetically passing on Force sensitivity, and cosmetic looks.
Cosmetically good looks.
But that, I think a lot of the things that people associate with Anakin Padme of her traits are things that actually came from her adopted parent. That, they're monarchs, right? Just like Padme was. So if you're like, oh, she's very dedicated, she's hardworking, she's perseverance, she's very loyal and a big sense of duty. It's like, you could apply that to Padme, I guess, but it would make a lot more sense that kind of thing came from the 2 monarchs that she got raised by. And then, same with Anakin, where people go she's very passionate, she can have a temper sometimes. And Bail has had snarky, kind of snappy moments since the beginning, since the prequels. That he is someone who, he's a politician, he kind of hides what he feels sometimes, but he has moments where he will snap back at other politicians. And, so he clearly has his own version of his temper and passion as well. And, Bail is the only one willing to fight for anybody. Whereas Padme, is willing to let certain atrocities go.
Never forget that Bail rolled up to that temple in his little speeder with no guns. He was just like, you know what? I have the audacity, and they are going to listen to me. And he tried.
He made an effort. He doesn't know what's happening until he gets there. He just sees it burning.
He shows up to help.
Bail's instinct is to go help.
Yes. Yeah. He's like, I don't have any guards with me. I don't have any guns. This could be an attack. We just had a ship explode. Oh, we were just under siege 5 minutes ago. I don't know what's happening, but I'm going to go help. And he has no plan, and he shows up to help. And that is so cool.
And then nearly dies and turns around and goes I'm going to go make sure I catch all these fugitives.
Yes.
Immediately puts himself in more danger and continues to risk his neck for these people. Now that he knows that there is a personal attack on the Jedi, he doesn't go oh shit, well, this just became beyond what I am capable of handling. He goes oh, okay, it's not burning. They've been attacked. Let me go make sure that I pick up as many fugitives as I can. And then becomes a getaway car for Yoda.
Yes, he's so great. And, he is critical. I love how important they made Bail in Revenge of the Sith, because it makes his character so good. I love him.
Yeah, the amount of, dedication and passion and love that he shows in Revenge of the Sith are really, really impressive. That he is willing to put his life on the line, for primarily people he's never met, probably. He's not going to be personally familiar with every Jedi in that temple. He doesn't even know which fugitive Jedi he's going to find. He happens to be personally familiar with Yoda and Obi Juan, obviously, but, he didn't know that was who he was going to find. It could have been anybody. And he just went out there willing to help whoever. And then he takes on, the biggest space Nazis Force-sensitive child.
Which is a huge risk.
It's a huge risk.
The Emperor could take over his whole planet for that shit. He thinks Vader is dead, but even after he knows Vader's alive, he still keeps her.
Yeah.
That's his baby girl now. That's his daughter. That's it.
Yeah. So it's I think personally, I feel all of Leia's traits came out of her adopted parents, and not her biological parents. Because I was there's also some pretty nasty bullshit in Anakin and Padme that I feel we never see in Leia. Padme's willingness to just kind of let some shit slide. Leia doesn't let shit slide.
You could argue that Padme lets shit slide, she lets things slide for Anakin, and you could be like, oh, because she loves him. And I like that Leia is not.
She never let shit slide for Han.
Yes, she does not let shit slide just because she loves someone. Like,
I will say, she does do this in the sequels for Kylo. But if we throw the sequels in the trash,
which we will do.
Not to talk about Kylo Ren, but actually that is one of my least favorite things about the sequels is that Leia is so convinced that her son can be saved. Because, like, I feel like if Leia saw her son doing that shit, she'd be the first one to beat his ass. Like, not that I don't think that she would believe in him because, like, you know, she knows him really well, but more like we never actually get to see Leia and Kylo interact, which I know is this because she wasn't in the third movie, but they did 2 whole ass movies and we never actually get to see them talk. And I feel like that sucks. I feel like if you're going to make it such a big, important part of her character, we should at least get to see what kind of dynamic she has with him. Because we don't really know a lot about what he feels about her either. And, like, we do get that in, like, her relationship with her parents. She clearly loves her parents a lot and listens to them a lot. But we don't really get it for a lot of the other parent-child relationships surrounding her, which annoys me.
Yeah, I mean, to follow up on that, she doesn't talk about Anakin or Padme very much. Like, within canon, within, like, the 3 film trilogies primarily, there isn't a lot of discussion about what Leia feels about the revelation of who it is she's actually descended from. Both of them, you know, both Padme and Anakin, we really have no idea how Leia feels about that lineage.
Which is kind of a shame because I feel like they could have done a lot of interesting stuff with that because they made Kylo so obsessed with Anakin in the third series.
The sequels, yeah.
And they don't really touch on it. Like, she talks about Snoke, but she doesn't really talk about how her son is, like, obsessed with Anakin. She doesn't mention... Padme doesn't exist in the fucking sequels, which annoys me all the time. But, like, none of that comes up at all. And, like, you have to even read a fucking book to know that the reason she's not part of the Senate officially is because the galaxy reacted badly to the revelation that she's Vader's daughter. Like, there's a lot of layers to those relationships that we don't really get any, like, no one ever digs into them in the movies. They go for, like, the most basic stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like I haven't even seen, like... I don't love the idea that the galaxy rejects her because she's Vader's daughter. I think that's a little silly.
No, it's stupid.
Especially since you can pull out, like, by the way, you have been, like, revering and idolizing Padme Amidala for how fucking long now? And I'm also her daughter. Like, you know, even though Padme had her fucking flaws, no one in the future seems willing to, you know, acknowledge that because most of it's pretty unknown.
Sorry, the man I met once contributed biological material to my genetic makeup. Like, what am I supposed to do about that? Like, My parents were Bail and Breha Organa. Speaking of, Breha is the best, and I need more of her. She's my queen.
I would love more exploration of Breha. I feel like we never get a lot of exploration of her, and what we do is wildly different each time I see her.
One thing that I was disappointed about in Kenobi, I'm so sorry to Kenobi, but I was disappointed about this, is that some of the stuff that they did for Breha I don't remember what it was, but there's like a book or a comic about Leia, like young Leia, and the reason that they gave in the book for Breha not being able to have kids and
the pacemaker thing
was because she has these, like, glowing I don't know what they're called, glowing biomedical devices in her chest that are essentially a pacemaker caused by the injury she took when she went through, like, the trial to become queen. And they were so cool. Like, the image of this beautiful queen who, like, suffered so much for her people and now, like, has these, like, permanent, like, glowing things in her chest, literally representing the sacrifices that she has made, was so beautiful and awesome. And I really wish they had put it in the show. I know it would have been hard to make it look cool, but it was so cool, and I still think about it.
Be that hard. She wore, like, relatively high-necked things. You just put 4 little glowy lights under her.
Yeah,
it's not that hard.
There could have been some little glows under there, and, like, that could have been it. That's been fine.
We've all seen Iron Man. They could do it.
Also, I think what's interesting about... Yeah, right?
Yeah.
What's interesting, I think, about that is the parallel between Breha and Anakin, then, that both of them are basically living on life support, right? Mm-hmm. That, like, if Breha loses the the pacemaker, she dies. Her heart stops working. But that, you know, it doesn't make her less of a good person. There is no, like, indication that, like, having life support has made her more machine than human. And so it's an interesting comparison there that, like, it's not the suit that's made Vader what he is. You know, it's not, like, being more machine than man, nothing to do with the suit itself. It is the choices that he's making and the lack of emotion that he's allowing himself to feel. And I just appreciate that, because I know that ableism is an accusation that's been given to Anakin and the suit, and the idea of the machine, more machine than man line in particular. This idea that because he's disabled, that it turns him, that this is what makes him a villain. And I think that the comparison of Brea, who is also on life support, but is beautiful still and is good, she's a good person, a good queen, a good mother, you know, is an interesting parallel to make for Leia with her parents.
Once again, we didn't really talk about Padme, though. We should talk about Padme a tiny bit more.
Unfortunately, there's not as much to say, right, in the sense that, like, there's not a lot of interaction there, but that is one of the things I think the Kenobi show did relatively well, is that they were constantly comparing her to Padme. You know, that's who Obi Juan sees when he looks at her. He actually doesn't see Anakin, and most people, I think, kept assuming that he was seeing Anakin when he looked at her. But I'm like, the dialogue tells you it's Padme.
Nah, he sees her mother when he looks at her, and like I feel like that's a really good comparison, because Padme, in a lot of ways, while she has her flaws, she is good at finding people who are good around her, and Bail
with
and
a
Breha
notable exception.
With a notable exception, yeah. But Bail and Breha are some of her close friends, and she loves them and trusts them, and especially Bail. And
I was going to say, Bail is, at least. We have no idea whether she's ever met Brea.
Oh, I guess we can assume. But yeah, you're right. We don't technically know for sure. And, like, when the things that Padme has in common with Leia are things that she had in common with Bail. And those are the things that Bail is passing on to her daughter, because he knows that those are things that were important to her because they're important to him. And that's why they were friends. And I feel like that's like a lost thing sometimes, is that, like, a lot of the things that we're admiring about Leia that are, we see as, like, from Padme are actually just things that Padme and Bail had in common because they are best friends. And
because they're both, like, two of the very few good politicians left. But, like,
yes,
you know, like, there's only a couple
of
us.
It's a good thing we like each other because we're the only two. They're coworkers that are, like, trauma bonded by a shitty manager.
Exactly, right? Yeah. But yeah, like, I think that connection between Padme and Bail, I think, often gets overlooked. And so they're like, oh, you know, Leia's like Padme because she's stubborn, she's bossy, you know, or she's got political inclinations. And I'm like, gee, could she have gotten that from anyone else?
Maybe the politician who raised her.
Both politicians. The queen is a politician too.
Like, that's true. Yeah.
I was like, she got raised by two politicians. That was, you know, like, often when you get raised by two parents who have the same exact career, you tend to go that direction. Like, that's how so many kids go, is that you have, you know, like, you're surrounded by it. And surrounded by passion for it too. Like, a really, like, beautiful, pure, you know, passion for this work that they do and just for helping people. And I think that, like, her sense of love and duty comes from Bail and Brea. And that's something that I think Padme actually lacked in a lot of ways.
So this is a tiny aside because I love to talk about Andor at any opportunity. One thing I really like about Andor is when they're talking about how when Luthen is talking about how he's doing dirty shit in the rebellion that other people can't do. And, like, Mon Mothma is talking about, like, doing the dirty stuff in the rebellion that other people can't do, but, like, they still need hope to be alive in order for this stuff to be working. They're talking about Bail and Leia, because Bail and Leia are the people that they are protecting from that dirty stuff because they need them to be good. They need that goodness to exist, to work for the better future. So that's what the future is. And I really like that they need both. You cannot have only the Luthens and the Mon Mothmas who are willing to do the dirty shit to actually build a better future. You also need the people who are going to build a better future. Like, Mon Mothma and Luthen are sacrificing their, like, literal, like, souls
humanity
for this, their humanity, to get this work done. But they're doing it knowing that someone else is going to actually finish it. Someone else is going to actually, like, complete it and get it to where they want it to be, to the future that they're working towards, because they know that by doing this stuff, they can't be that person. And Bail and Leia are who they are doing this for. They're who they are pushing forward to become the future. And I really, really like that parallel that you need. Well, the rebellion specifically needs both. They need the people willing to do the dirty work, but they also really, really, really need Bail and Leia to be that guiding light, to be that hope for people, to keep them going. Because without it, none of it matters.
Yeah, and that's, I think, one of the reasons that the whole idea of the galaxy abandons her because she's Vader's daughter, and that the New Republic just kind of fails as an entire concept bothers me, because I think I like the idea that, like, you have to pass the baton, right? And that Leia was the one who had to take it from Bail. You know, that when Bail dies on Alderaan, you know, Leia has to pick up the baton and move the rebellion forward. And that's part of why she's so, like, focused on it, I think, with, like, the relationship to Han, is that, like, she just picked up this massive responsibility from her father who just got murdered, you know? That she does not have the time or capacity to prioritize a relationship or her own emotions, you know, regarding that she's got bigger fish to fry here. And that's part of what I've been able to work into the Han and Leia thing too, is this responsibility she's had to pick up, that, like, this is an element of her grief almost, is this focus on the rebellion. And, like, it would have been nice to see Leia be able to continue to take that baton and realize the dream that her father, her friends, her planet died for. And we don't really get to see that. Leia and Bail's dream just fails. Everyone gave up things for this dream and it goes nowhere. And that's very frustrating.
Especially, like, this frustrates me in so many levels, because, okay, on the one hand, like, the fact that they make her no longer part of the New Republic officially sucks and is stupid and shouldn't happen. Even though General Leia is sick as fuck, I get it, but, like, that doesn't make any sense. And on another level, they then kill off the entire New Republic. They just made a whole new government and they blow them the fuck up. And it doesn't make any difference in the next 2 movies. They don't deal with the ramifications of losing 5 planets that had all of their infrastructure. They don't talk about it at all. It's like, oh, hello, we should deal with this. And then go in the new stuff, in The Mandalorian, they're making the New Republic suck. They're making them incredibly ineffective. They're making them awful. They're making them full of, like, imperial shills. Like, it's just a shitty government that's really ineffective. So actually it doesn't matter that they died. So it sucks on every possible level. It sucks that it exists. It sucks that it dies. And then it sucks that it doesn't matter that it dies.
Yeah, agreed. It definitely feels like they're turning the New Republic into the Empire in all but name. That even without the imperial shills, you know, who are pretending to be better than they are, that, like, the people who are supposedly supposed to be good in there are still
useless.
Bad.
Yeah,
useless, but
useless.
Also bad.
Like, they're just like they're just like, yeah, this is just the Empire with, like, a new name. Like, what do you mean? This is the Empire with a new name. Like, people died for this shit. We had 6 fucking movies leading up to this, and you're telling me that no, actually, because you can't conceive of a better world, you're just gonna make it suck? Like, this is supposed to be sci-fi. I don't know if you noticed. I know it's space fantasy, whatever, but, like, it's the first movie's called A New Hope, not guess what, it sucks in every galaxy.
Yeah. And to be fair, there is sci-fi for that. You can go find that if you would like it. It's in other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you want to watch something gritty and horrible and depressing, go watch Alien. I don't know. Like, go watch something else. This is Star Wars. I hate it.
Yeah.
Do we want to touch on Rey and Poe?
Yeah. Like, there's not a ton there, but we can if we want.
No. There's not really a ton about Rey and Poe. And the issue is because they don't really let Leia do anything. Like,
yeah, I think the problem is that there isn't enough of a relationship between Leia and Rey and Poe, and that either one of them could have been interesting. You know, Poe as her little ingenue that doesn't have the Force, but like a political ingenue, or Rey as Padawan of sorts. You know, you could have gone either direction, but it needed to actually be decided on earlier and then developed, and it wasn't anywhere.
Like, the idea of her having Poe as, like, her successor that she is like kind of training and like implicitly trusts so much, like with the information about her brother who's been missing for 10 years, like she really, really trusts this guy and really believes in him. And then the next movie, she's like, I'm demoting you because you suck. I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean? That doesn't make any sense. We had such an interesting relationship dynamic going on. We had Poe as like the next like leader of the rebellion, rebel, whatever, the resistance, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
We had a cool thing happening here, and then you're just gonna rehash every 80s action movie ever. Like, can you stick with something interesting?
Yeah. And then Rey obviously, you know, has Leia for about 10 minutes at the beginning of the third movie, and, you know, it is what it is. There's not a ton there. Like, at least Leia seems like a better teacher than her brother was. But, like, you know, so it's like, at least I got...
That bar's low.
The bar's really low. But, you know, I was like, at least this gave me, like, Rey learning anything. You know, and it does seem to be a positive relationship. I appreciate the sort of, you know, female to female, you know, master Padawan relationship. There's not a lot of that in Star Wars. You know, at least within the main characters in particular, because there is, like, you know, Barriss and Luminara. But it was relatively rare, so it was nice to see, but I don't think that it, you know, they didn't give it any time before the third movie for that relationship to develop. You know, all you get is, like, that they hug over Han's death, I guess, and it's like, this is the first time Leia's even meeting Rey. They don't even know who they are, who the other person is. You know, like, why are they hugging each other over Han's loss? This is very strange, you know, as their first ever interaction.
I thought, no, you're right, because she only hears about her from Finn, because she's been captured. So she never fucking meets her. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah,
they don't even meet each other until they come back at the very end and she hugs Leia.
Unset of Chewie. Oh my god. I'm gonna have a heart attack.
And they don't have any interaction until the very end of the second film. You know, where she's like, oh, you know, what are we gonna do now? And Leia has some sort of pithy, like, you know, well, there's always hope, or some sort of, you know, kind of response. So it's like the relationship is really limited, really minimal. And so it's like, I don't totally buy into it in the third film. Like, it's nice to see, but I'm like, if you were going to go for Leia as her real master, couldn't we have done this a little faster? Why did you send her to Luke to begin with? You know, if Luke was going to teach her nothing and we were just going to come back to Leia. So it's like, I like it. I just don't think that there's a lot of that relationship to speak to, because I don't think there's a lot of depth to it. And unfortunately, Poe is just, you know, wasted potential. Yeah. As normal.
It's okay. I always have fan fiction.
Yeah.
We can always count on fan fiction.
I always can.
So I guess the last thing I want to touch on is this. We kind of have talked about it a little bit, but the idea that anger is her big flaw. I feel like it's not. Personally.
I feel like it's not, because I don't think anger is a flaw.
I think anger can be a flaw, especially within Star Wars, you know, but...
But the thing about anger is that anger is almost... Okay, not almost. It is usually a cover-up for another emotion. There's always a different route to anger. Anger is the second emotion that is a reaction to your first emotion. So Leia has flaws that do lead her to get angry, but anger is not her flaw.
Yeah, true.
And I don't think anger really is a flaw in characters, because if you're only thinking of your character's flaw as being anger, then you're not digging into why are they angry? What is making them angry? Like, I feel like when people just like, oh, he has anger issues. Okay, but what are his anger issues stemming from? Like, where are we going from this? And like that's what really bothers me the most about like then people saying that anger is like her main flaws, because like, okay, but you're not doing anything with that. Like, what do you mean anger is her flaw? What is driving that? You have to dig a little further in that to figure out, like, what is her actual character flaw.
I also don't think she loses control with her anger very often. Like, I think you can say that, like, for example, Anakin often uses anger as a thing to cover up his fear, and he allows the anger to become a problem. You know, that, like, obviously the underlying issue is fear and insecurity and pain, but that he covers it all up with the anger. And so the anger does become an issue in and of itself, even if it's not the core problem, because he lets his anger control him to the point that he's willing to kill others. Um, because he'd rather be angry than be scared. And I don't think that Leia ever gets to the point of letting her anger take control of her to the point that she hurts anyone else.
This is actually one of the reasons that I like Han and Leia, is because I feel like Leia actually doesn't get angry. The only person she gets angry with really is Han, and that's why I like their relationship, because he gives her space to be angry without being afraid. Because I feel like we often do see her being afraid. We often do see her upset and scared. Like, she's scared in Tarkin, she's scared of Vader, she's scared of Jabba. Like, there's a lot of things we see her be afraid of. But the only time we see her lash out and snap is at Han, because she trusts him. And that's one of the things I like. I think you're exactly right.
Yeah, and even then, like, the worst thing that she ends up saying to Han is that you're a scruffy-looking nerf herder, right? Like,
which is not, like, it's an insult, but, like, he's heard worse. Come on.
He's heard worse, and, like, most of her interactions with him when she's frustrated, it doesn't feel like anger to me so much as it does feel like frustration. She's like, you're not, like you said, like, it's a lot of you're not living up to your potential. Like, why are you pushing me on this when you're also not doing what I would expect you to do? And I think she doesn't lose control. Like, the worst she has is scruffy looking nerf herder, and that's not that big of a loss of control. So it's like, just because she expresses irritation or frustration does not mean that anger is a flaw that she has. And I think that that's my issue with it, is that I don't actually see that. Like, yeah, she snaps once or twice, but, like, that's not actually showing that temper is an issue that she has. Whereas Luke, I think, actually loses his temper much more often.
Ironically, I think the times that I can think of where Leia loses her temper, she's losing at the same time Luke is. Like, one example I could think of is when they're in the garbage disposal, and, like, Han comes in and, like, starts messing with things, and they both start yelling at him, like, we already tried that shit, stop! Like, they're both pissed. That's what the first example that comes to mind of her actually being angry. It's the same time that Luke is really upset.
Yeah. Yeah, but, like, and, like, you get, like, Luke being frustrated with Yoda, right? And pushing back on Yoda, and his very major loss of control when he tries to kill Vader at the very end. That, like, arguably anger is a bigger issue for Luke than it ever is. And so I think it's, like, I feel like the only reason people want this is because they want the connection to Anakin, because presumably most people were comparing Luke to Anakin and Leia to Padme for a long time, and people started feeling like there was a sexism happening there.
Which, like, in fairness, there is.
But I think that in trying to force a connection to Anakin, you're disrupting Leia's character. Because, like, maybe there's a sexism, but, like, also Luke is very much compared to Anakin. Like, that's kind of the whole point of the entire first trilogy. It's like the connection between Luke and Anakin, and how similar they are, and that similarity is what allows Luke to turn around and forgive him. And that they very deliberately then turned around, and when they made the mother that was a politician, just like Leia. So, like, there are some deliberate in-universe similarities between these characters, and that the person who's friends with Bail, like you said, is Padme. Anakin never speaks to Bail, like, in the movies, and he might once or twice, if you're lucky, in Clone Wars.
I think they do talk in Clone Wars once or twice, but yeah, they're not, like, really besties.
Most of Bail's bigger stuff is him interacting with Padme or other Jedi, and then they never interact in the movies, so it's like, Anakin has no relationship with Bail, but Padme does, so there are some deliberate connections between Padme and Leia, and obviously some very deliberate ones between Luke and Anakin, so I'm like, yeah, there might be a sexism there, in that you're comparing son to father, and daughter to mother, and that there is less comparison, the other directions. But I was like, I think that in trying to fix that issue, you're just kind of ruining Leia a little bit, and giving her some very skin deep sort of analysis in order to create that connection. Like, oh, Leia's irritated sometimes. That means that she has the same flaw as Anakin. And I'm like,
I mean, I don't hate the character that fans have come up with who they think is Leia. I think she's fun. She's interesting. She's not Leia.
She's a little shallow.
She's like a different person. But the different person they've come up with is interesting to me. I think she's cool.
Which, in fairness, you like Anakin, so... And I think Anakin's a
That's
boring
not the
piece of
point.
shit. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm like, I don't like her. I think she's boring and flat. But I also think Anakin is boring. I don't think Anakin is flat, because I think there is a lot of nuance to Anakin that doesn't exist in fan Leia. The Leia who is just like Anakin, I think, is very flat, because I think in trying to make that comparison, you've lost what makes Leia who she is.
Yeah, I'm not saying she's Leia. She's a different person.
No, I know, but I think in losing what makes her Leia, that character that fans have created, there's no nuance to her.
I have read some stuff that was pretty good that gave her some nuance, but I agree that the basic one, you're right, is pretty flat. But I feel like there have been stuff that has like made her more interesting, but that's not the point of this podcast, so.
That's fine. But yeah, so, I think that she often keeps her cool. I don't think that she really has anger as a flaw. I don't think that she has issues controlling her emotions and her behaviors and stuff like that. I think that just isn't an accurate interpretation of Leia as a character. And that she does let go of her attachments pretty easily, and I don't think that is something Anakin ever learns to do.
Yeah, I think to sum Leia up would be that she is an incredibly selfless character who loves a lot and is a fantastic leader, and I think that's a very rare character in the 70s specifically, to have a woman have all of those qualities and not be disrespected for any of them.
Yeah. In summation, Leia's really cool. Stop comparing her to Anakin. There's way better and more interesting comparisons to make.
Compare her to Bail, because then you'd be talking about Bail, and we would like to talk about Bail more.
If you need to compare her to a father figure, there's a better one.
There's a better one. There's a good one. This is specifically for my boyfriend who doesn't care about Bail. You're wrong.
Break up.
Do you want me to fight him for you? Listen, it's okay. We'll find you a better boyfriend.
I'll let him know. Listen, by committee, you're on board with Bail, or
you're done. All right. Do you have a goat fact for us?
My goat fact for you this week is: a baby goat is called a kid, but did you know that a goat giving birth is said to be kidding?
Stop! No!
How did Tamara Pierce never use this one in The Circle Opens? Are you kidding me?
Our intro and outro music is Mos Eisley Cantina by Speedkicks. Angela and I edit, our artwork is by me, and Sugar is our writer and researcher. You can find us on Instagram and Tumblr at Unleash the Goats. Thanks for listening.